Our next lesson concerns the subject of international trade. And what I want to discuss with you today is a very, very short abstract from the lesson about consumer and producer surpluses due to the international trade. And as you know, we start from our beloved supply and demand curves, where we have price on the vertical axis and quantity on the horizontal axis. Traditionally, we have demand curve and supply curves. We assume that this graph belongs to the country which has an autark economy. Autark economy means that the country consumes what it itself produces. So it does not import any goods, it does not export any goods, it only consumes what its national economy has produced. So we call it autark economy. And we say that in autark economy, there is an equilibrium price, P star, and an equilibrium quantity, Q star, of a certain good. Demand curve shows us the total amount of goods demanded in this particular economy, which means that, for example, this consumer is able to pay this high price, let's say that P maximum, this high price for amount of good he needs. It means that this good is so much important for him that he's able and he's willing to pay such a high price, which we call price maximum. However, since the equilibrium price is at the P star level, he also has to pay only this price. He was willing to pay, he was able to pay this high price, but he pays this price because this is a market price. What does it mean? Is he happy with that or upset? Of course he's happy because he has to pay less, and he has to pay less to this amount. That were his expectations, and this is the actual price he pays, and these are his potential win, or we call it consumer surplus. And this consumer, he was willing to pay this price, but pays an equilibrium market price, so his supplies is not as big as surplus from this consumer. It is less, but it is still quite big, and so on. We have so many consumers here till the last one who was able to pay this price and paid it, and he's still happy. And all this area is the area of consumer surplus. So we call this triangle as a consumer surplus. And that's showed in a small table where we say that this is consumer here, this is producer here, and this is their surplus. And if we call this area, let's say with the letter A, then the letter A will be called as a triangle of consumer surplus. Now let's talk about the producers of this country. Producers of this particular country do not have to deal with international competitors because this is, as we said, an autark economy. So what they produce, they sell only in this country, so on their domestic market. What we see here, there are also a lot of producers here, a lot of producers. Some of them are willing to sell this amount of products with this amount of price. Let's say price minimum. They are able, or they are willing to sell with this minimum price this amount of produced quantity. But what happens here? They sell their little amount of products, but they sell it with this price, equilibrium price. So what do you think? Are they happy or upset? Of course, they're also happy, right? So this producer is happy and his expectations are increased in price till this level. So that is his win or his surplus. We call it surplus. So this producer was willing to produce and sell this amount of good with this price, but he sells this amount of good with this price, with equilibrium price. So his surplus is as not big as from the previous one, but still it is quite big. And so on. Each next producer has surplus till the equilibrium, till the market equilibrium. These producers are willing to sell their products with higher price, but nobody buys it because equilibrium market price is on this level. So therefore, we call this triangle, this blaue triangle, a triangle of producer surplus. And let's call it with the letter B. So producer surplus, here's plus, producer surplus will be indicated on this graph as a letter B. Now let's assume that this country decided to open its borders for the international trade. Happened something and they decided to sell their goods outside and to buy goods from other countries, and so they open their borders. And what happens in this case? This product, we are talking about an international market now. On the international market is sold with another price. That was a closed economy. But if the country opens its borders, it has to deal with another prices of the same good. So the market price in the world economy is lower. Is, for example, on this level. Price international. Let's call it international. This is an international price. So, what do you think? In this case, if the economy is no anymore autark, but it becomes open, who wins in this case? Consumers or producers? So, the market price in the international economy, as you know, is lower than the market price in the national economy. What does it mean? It means that the market price in national economy will fall down to the level of market price in the international economy. So inside the market of this country, you will be able to buy goods with international price. What happens then? Of course, consumers may buy more to this amount, because these consumers are at stage they can also buy now. It means that they have also a what? Surplus. And the surplus of consumers, the total surplus for the whole economy, has become bigger to that was previously A. This small triangle was the surplus in the national economy. And we have now some more figures. This trapeze, let's call it B, and this triangle, let's call it C, BC. And we say that in the open economy, the surplus of consumer will be not only A, but it will be also B and C. This B does not exist anymore. B and C. So we can definitely say that consumers of the national economy gained due to the lower market price of the international economy. But what happened in this case with producers? When the market price falls down, producers cannot sell their goods anymore by P star, but they have to sell their goods by PI, Price International. So these producers will not exist anymore. They will fail. National producers will lose their market share, and then they will just disappear due to the probably old technologies, because it is too expensive for them to produce the same goods and to sell it with this lower price. So it means that only these producers will have gain anymore, and they will be successful with this lower price. Probably they have more intensive technologies, or it is somehow easier or cheaper to produce goods for these part of producers. So only this amount of goods, let's call it Q international, will be produced in the open economy. But what about the consumers consume this amount of good? Where does it come from? Produced is this amount and consumed is this amount. What is then this part, or this quantity of the goods? What is this? It is an imported goods. So it means that national producers will have this small amount of surplus that they still have in the national economy due to the production of this certain good. And let's call it D, with the letter D, and say that our national producers have now a surplus of a triangle D. And my question to you is, what do you think they have lost? Because the economy changed to the open style, so to say. What did they what is the change, or what did they lose? They lost, or let's take a green one. They lost this B part, right? They had it before. They had this big triangle before as a surplus, and now they have only this small D triangle. So the national producers lost this B triangle. Therefore, we have to put there one more column and call it lost. And we see in this column, we have to put the trapeze B as a lost for the national producers. So, and in this way, we analyze what happens if the market or becomes international, if the country opens its borders for the international products, for export, for import, and so on. The next step of an analysis would be to see what will happen if the international price is higher, or if there are some trade restrictions in this country, like quotas and tariffs, how it impacts national consumers, national producers. Do they win, do they lose, and how much do they win and how much do they lose?